Happy Thursday, everyone. We're just giving everyone a few more seconds to get in and to get settled before we begin on our second night of our series, God, Faith, and Culture.
Happy Thursday, Brittany.
Okay, so for those of you who do not know me, my name is Brittany, and I am the youth leader of Hope Seventh day Adventist Church and the communications director for our region, which is the Metro South Central Regional Youth Association. And I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Thursday and welcome back to the second night of our series, God, Faith, and Culture. I hope that you all had a lovely day today, but even if it wasn't absolutely amazing, I know that tonight will definitely make it better. So with that, we're happy that you are here. We're sure that you will be blessed. And just a reminder that your presence here is a blessing to all of us as well. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We're happy that you have decided to join us for our second night. And just a reminder that if you're here, you're invested, you've already made it through two nights. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow night and Saturday morning as well. Welcome. We had mentioned yesterday that we're actually doing giveaways every night. So every night, two beautiful people will be chosen to receive a copy of Pastor Eddie Hippolyte's book. And the people chosen today will now be announced. But the catch was that those who were chosen, in order to receive your prize, in order to receive your book, you do have to be present during this welcome period. So hopefully those two people are here and they have their cameras on and they're ready to receive what the Lord has in store for them. So the first person that will be receiving a book is Samuel, and I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, Samuel, so I'm not going to try and butcher it.
It's okay. It's Kadu.
Kadu, beautiful. Yeah. So
thank you,
Samuel, you are the winner of one of Pastor Eddie's books. Thank you so much for your participation and engagement.
Praise God. I'm excited. I look forward to reading it.
And our second person, and I don't know if some of my teammates can help me to see if they're online, it would be Cam. I believe her name on Zoom was just K, but it was Cam. No, is she there? Yeah, I'm getting a nod from Keisha.
Cam as Camille or Cam as Kamaria?
As Camille.
Okay. We have two.
Okay. So I'm getting a thumbs up that she's here. So you are our second winner.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, it's Camille.
Hi.
Hi.
Again, thank you for being here and for your engagement, for having your camera on. You will be receiving a copy of Pastor Eddie's book as well. And we'll be reaching out to both of you later on in the evening to just get your contact so that you guys are able to receive your prizes. So just a reminder for everyone on here, if you want an opportunity to receive one of Pastor Eddie's books, all that you have to do is one, be here, which you've already done, and two, have your camera on. It's that simple, just those two things, and you will have the opportunity to receive one of his books. But it doesn't end there. We also have two larger prizes, a gift card, which is not a small gift card, guys. It's like a really good gift card, and also a study Bible. And again, all that you have to do is one, be present, be engaged, and have your camera on. Very simple, and the prizes are beautiful. So Thank you so much to those that received gifts tonight. And I look forward to seeing who will be receiving gifts. And again, it will be announced tomorrow night at 7:30. So in wrapping up, I just want to say once more, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so happy that you're here. And I know that you will be blessed.
Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Hope Seventh-day Adventist Church, again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in, for logging in, and for watching here on YouTube as well. We are live. This is live and interactive. We have Pastor Eddie Hippolyte with us this evening, and we as a Hope family are happy he's here, but we share him with everyone who's watching today. If you're here today, there is a ground rule. There's a ground rule and some ground rules. The first being, if you're here tonight, then you got to stay with us for the journey. Now, folk have been with us last night, and we thank those who have been with us last night. But this is a 3-part or 4-part series. So if you want the full blessing, you need to be here for all the time that we're here together. So we're going to encourage you. If there's a time to miss, it was yesterday. You can't miss any other night or any other day that we spend together, because we're going to grow together as we're here in this space. The next ground rule is, if possible, we're asking that you turn on your camera. We want to see who you are. We want you to be comfortable in the space. Now, everybody, we have an opportunity to jump in each other's homes, to see where each other are on the road or at work, at school, at home. So we're asking that you feel comfortable and you get comfortable in your space, but you also share yourself with us in this space. It's intimate, and it's created that way so that we can be transparent and we can share this space together. So we're going to encourage that you do that. And the next thing is plan to grow. If you're here, plan to grow. Plan to use what you get, to apply it, to share it, to live it, and to experience God do amazing things in your life. Again, we're happy you've joined us, and we want to say God bless you and thank you for being with us on this journey. God bless you tonight, and keep the faith.
Is that over to me now?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're gonna come over.
You caught me by surprise. You caught me by surprise. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. It's great to be back with you in this space. And I'm grateful for yesterday's journey. I think we did some good learning yesterday. I think we did some good growing yesterday. And I know that God is gonna do something with us again. I really do believe he's gonna do and open up something great for us again. So why don't we just have a word of prayer and ask God to bless, and let's move into our second session. Father, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be in this space. Thank you for the opportunity to learn and grow and share and be invested in this space of conversation. I ask, Lord, that you will bless us as we do so. I ask that you will give us clarity and give us a sense of realignment with you and renewal in your spirit. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. So let me share my screen. And I'm gonna ask also if I just in our back channel chat, can somebody just send me the list of all of the facilitators. I'm gonna try and do both at the same time. Just send me the list, the names of all of the facilitators. I feel like I'm missing someone. But let me share my screen and let's catch up on where we were from yesterday. So yesterday we talked about the things we know. Today we're talking about the things we do. We're talking about the things that we do. So where did we go yesterday? We've been talking about God, we've been talking about church, we've been talking about culture, because that's where we find ourselves. That's where we find ourselves as a group of believers. That's where we find ourselves as followers of Jesus Christ. That's where we find ourselves as people moving, as God gives us clarity and as God gives us space in which to move. Let's recap. The question is, what are the things that we know? What are the things that we know? That's what we spent time discussing yesterday. What are the things that we can safely say we know when we talk about God, when we talk about culture, we talk about church? When we talk about God, we talk about church, and we talk about culture. Well, the first thing we said, we know that to intentionally follow Jesus Christ, which is to commit our lives to a life of surrender. And I hope some of you have pens and papers so that you can write some of this stuff down. Remember, surrender simply means that we stop fighting God, where God is trying to grow us and where God is trying to institute something new. That's what surrender is. Surrender is trusting that God actually has a longer view than us. Surrender is actually trusting that God sees a much bigger picture than we do. Surrender is believing that God, he isn't a butcher of trees, but he's a pruner of trees, that he's a good gardener. Yeah, that he knows what he's doing. He's been doing it a long time, that we are safe clay in his hands. That's what surrender means. And so we stop fighting God. We stop fighting God. We stop doubting God. We know that to intentionally follow Jesus Christ, which is to commit our lives to a life of surrender, we know that to intentionally live in a community of powered, loving relationships. And I don't use that word love loosely, because love is the greatest giving of ourselves that we engage in. It's the greatest giving of ourselves that we engage in. You can force somebody to hate you. Somebody can force you to hate them, but they can never force you to love them. They can never force you to love them. You can say it with all your words, but in the privacy of your heart and in your mind, I never love you. I love you so much, No, honestly, I really do. I love you. It's easy to say the words. Love is the most intentional and the most sacred giving of ourselves. Because, if you've ever been in love, boy, it's just let me swim in a caramel ocean. Just let me, it's like that. You jump and you allow your heart to be fully invested in that space. And so I don't use the word loosely. And God doesn't use the word loosely when he says you will have love for one another. Then people will know that you are my disciples. So to intentionally live in a community of empowered, loving relationships, which is interdependence. We are all independent people learning how to live interdependently. That's the model for creation. That's why God didn't create Adam and Eve at the same time. He created one, then he created the other. When Adam opened his eyes for the first time, the first eyes that she looked into was the eyes of his creator. When Eve opened her eyes for the very first time, the first eyes she looked into was the eyes of her creator. She didn't look into the eyes of Adam. When Adam opened up his eyes after sleeping, when Adam opened up his eyes for the very first time, he looked straight into the eye, and they were created as two independent individuals. Independent individuals with the same same rights, with the same power, with the same mind, with the same heart. And then God gave them to each other and said, all right, now you are one. Figure out how you live interdependently. And the other thing that we've learned, that we know, is to selflessly serve humanity where God gives opportunity, which is other-centeredness, to give our lives to a life of service, surrender, interdependence, other-centeredness, intentionally following, intentionally living communities of empowered, loving relationships, selflessly serving humanity. We found out yesterday that that is the heart of faith. That is the heart of life. Even people who aren't Christians, they're doing that. They're living, anyone who is not a Christian, this is where they're living their greatest life. They're living their life surrendering themselves to issues and to ideas and to situations bigger than themselves. They are living their lives seeking to see how they can create communities that live together and that grow together and that share together and that inspire together. They're seeking to be less selfish about who they are and more other-centered, thinking more about the world around them, thinking more about their neighbor, thinking more about their environment. Even people who aren't followers of Jesus Christ, but who live their optimal life, this is where they live. This is where they live. But as followers of Jesus Christ, that's what we are surrendered to. That's what we are surrendered to. So the first question then is, if God, let's go back to our whole, when we said, what are the things we know about God? If now we know that God and a relationship with God is about Jesus, surrender. If we know now that a relationship with God and life with God is about relationships, interdependence. If now we know that God and understanding God is about service, being other-centered, what does God now look like? What does faith now look like? What does Christianity now look like? What does Adventism now look like? That's going to be our first discussion point. That's going to be our first discussion point. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And this thing is going to behave itself and allow me to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, come back into this space. And we are going to go into our first breakout group. Now, you're going to have to just be patient with me. You're going to have to be patient with me because I made the mistake of actually doing all the rooms. I made the mistake of doing, hold on, what did I just do here? What did I just do here? I made the mistake of doing all the rooms and all right then. I realized what I did. I made the mistake of doing all the rooms and at the same time doing this. So, all right, this is, so bear with me. 7 minutes, 30 seconds. Automatically people are going to go into all of their rooms and everyone, all right then, no one is in here. 6 rooms. Recreate. Here everyone is. Now, what is going to happen at the moment? What is going to happen at the moment is that some people are going to end up, some people are going to end up in rooms in which, and forgive me, some people are going to end up in rooms in which there isn't an assigned facilitator. So what you're going to have to do for this first set, and I will fix it while you discuss, is just have one person who is your facilitator, get your questions, get your answers together, and when you come back in, I will assign you all. Your proper. I will assign you all your proper facilitators. But you're going into your breakout rooms right now.
Sorry.
Question.
The main question.
Yes. And I'll put the questions. I'll put the questions in the chat. Are we together in this room? Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
All right then. I know that there are other people in this room. So if it's possible and you can come off of your if it's possible and you can come off of your come onto your camera, then please, if you can switch on your camera and share together. Let's do that. Let's do that. So what does God look like if faith in God is actually about Jesus Christ? It's about surrender. If understanding and knowing God is about relationships and it is about service. What does church now look like? What does our Christian faith?
Oh, sorry. Chanel is asking me to join. Should I join Chanel?
She's asking. Sorry, you were saying? Hi, everyone. It seems like you're all coming into my room, coming into my space. I can reassign you to another room if you want. But there's only about 23 seconds, so stay in this space with me for now. Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. So, oh, good to see you in all your glory, man. Good to see you. Okay, so we had a system breakdown, and the system breakdown was, preacher, you just worry about the speaking, let somebody worry about the breakout rooms. Yeah, so that was the system breakdown. One thing at a time, brethren, one thing at a time. But I know that every room, we had 6 rooms, and so we know that every room had a facilitator. So let's I know Shay was in one room. Shay, what was the takeaway in your room?
So when we finally figured out what the question was, what does life in God look like? One of them lady said, it looks like a family unit. What does life in God look like now? A family unit, the perfect family unit. Somebody said the perfect leader, so that we trust in his leadership, so we know how to follow. So therefore we can follow in his footsteps and give the right direction to our lives. Somebody also says that life in him means that you are accepted totally. Mm-hmm. And just trust that whatever he has in store for us, we can just follow.
Okay then, beautiful, beautiful. Pastor Dexter, your room. What was the takeaway in your room?
Oh, in my room was on fire. We're on fire in my room. And we said that God was an advocate. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, God is always providing. He's always speaking on your behalf. He's there to defend you. So that was one of the points. Next point, we said God is our shelter. And we can find, in a time like this, we can always find refuge in God. And if you hear the rain outside, wherever you live, you know for sure finding some shelter and some cover right about now is important. Even if there's fires going on around you, like in BC here in Canada, shelter right now is what we see God as. And also, finally, we see God as supreme. He's sovereign in spite. He's in control, no matter what politicians and what they say and how they release us like cattle during this time, meaning that they control whether we are in phase 1, phase 2, or 3. God is still in control of all of that. Yeah. And then also, he's our present help in our times of trouble.
Beautiful, beautiful. Brittany, what came out of your room?
I'm laughing because that's not the question we answered. Someone got false information as to what the question was.
Hey.
And so
what was the question? What was the question that finally got to you then? We're playing spiritual Chinese whispers here.
The question was, how do we show love to those around us?
All right then. Okay. All right. Let's stay there. Let's stay there. Yeah.
As the Spirit leads.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. You know what? I'll still give our answers.
Please do. Please do.
We said in the words that we speak to each other, kindness in conversation. We also said by celebrating, those around us, and a huge thing was reaching out and making contact, with those in our life. So a call, a text, etc.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Keisha, what came out of your room?
So similar to Brittany's, our question was received a little different. But what we looked at is how do we view God through the concepts that we looked at before: surrender, selflessness, and interdependence. It was so beautiful to hear some of these responses. Love sacrificially, like God shows his selflessness in the fact that he sacrificed for us. So Sheldon shared that with us. Another great point was learning that dependence on God is a natural first step to interdependence on each other. And how we looked at that was the shape of the cross. The shape of the cross points both vertically and horizontally. So it's a natural relationship that requires both. And finally, looking at God as love, both in his law and in his grace.
Beautiful. Lionel, what came out of your group?
Okay, so I guess we got our own question. I don't know where it came from, but the question we answered was, how can we intentionally show love to others? And it's sort of on the same track, so I'll just go ahead with my 3 points, with 3 points rather. So one of the points that was mentioned is that we could a smile. It's contagious. It makes us feel good. It sort of initiate a good feeling within. And, secondly, kindness. That goes a far way. It touches hearts. It brings hope. And it's what God is all about. Third, a greeting. First impression, a greeting makes someone feel good about themselves. And just taking that time out to give someone else focused attention. I know it's a bit, that wasn't the question, but this is what we came up with.
Okay, no, beautiful. Yeah. And lastly, Samuel, I know you didn't actually intend on being a facilitator, but I see you in a breakout group and so what came out of your group?
So
we discussion, Samuel?
Yeah, we also didn't get the question until later on, but we came up with the question as to what does love look like in terms of those 3 things, and so we incorporated love as a part of it, and we talked about love being an action word, and for God so loved the world that he gave, and just being reminded that when we think about the word love, and I was talking in my group and I was explaining that the other day I got rocked by somebody because they had expressed something to me, and I said, I'll pray for you. Mm-hmm. And they said, your prayers are all good, but I need some practical help. And that threw me for a loop, in the sense that, a lot of times we tell people we're going to pray for them, and as powerful as prayer is, there has to be a second step to it, and that's action, right? So now when I think about this idea of praying, I also follow it up with an action, and the young lady in the group, she said it so well that, for God so loved the world that he gave, and there's nothing that God could have said, or, it's what he did for us is what really impacts us today. So that's kind of where our discussion, the last minute beautiful. That we had when we came up with that question, that's what we kind of talked about. So
you all answered the question. And I love that idea, Samuel, for God so loved the world that he acted. Yeah, for God so loved the world that he didn't stay in heaven and just pray, For God so loved, for God so loved the world that he acted. Let's dig into this. Let's dig into this a little more. Let me get my life together in a much more meaningful way here. I'm not as smooth as I was yesterday, am I? Yesterday I was just a lot more, yesterday was like, I felt like I was butter. Today I feel like I'm like peanut butter, So if God is relationships, if we're thinking about God, and God is surrender, and God is interdependence, and God is other-centeredness, if God is about Jesus and relationships and service, which is what we're talking about, How does God respond to us? This is what God says. God says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. And love is proactive. We love God because, yeah, he first loved us. Yeah, and God isn't asking us to do anything that he's not willing to do first. As a matter of fact, sin has made it that God knows in order for us to believe in him, he has to act first and give us reason to believe in him. And so that's why in the Bible, God always acts first. God always moves first. God always loves first. God always speaks first. He says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, I have continued my faithfulness to you. And I love that. I love the idea of God being committed to loving us with an everlasting love and continuing to be faithful to us. This is how God is responding to us. So what does God look like? Well, we respond to the kingdom's inclusion that God is making possible. What ways in your life is God trying through the kingdom to bring inclusion, make you bring inclusion of the kingdom into your life? Because our job as human beings is to be aware of that and to respond to that inclusion. How is the kingdom trying to shape your life? How is the kingdom trying to influence your life? How is the kingdom trying to influence your family and influence the way your community as a church and the wider community that doesn't know God in the way that you know God, or that doesn't profess to know God in the way that you know God? How do they respond to that inclusion that God is making possible? Understanding that there can never be inclusion into God without transformation by God. And that's the key thing you have to understand. You can't be a Christian chatting about, well, you can't teach old dogs new tricks. That's not the kingdom of God. That's just the kingdom of individuality and self-preservation. The kingdom already makes it clear. If anyone be in Christ, they become new creations. And new creations grow. New creations transform. New creations change. And so you have to remember, if the kingdom is speaking about bringing us and bringing us into his inclusion, there can never be inclusion into God without transformation by God. The way in which you think, the attitudes that you have, the temperament that you have, them things are going to be changed by God. The way in which the young see the old and the old see the young, the way in which we lead, the way in which we mentor, the way in which we create legacies and cultures of legacy around us, all of those things are going to be transformed by God. There can never be inclusion into God without transformation by God. They go hand in hand. You have to remember that with God, we are not being incorporated into an idea. Yeah, we are moving into the life of a person, of a being, supernaturally divine. Jesus is not a dead philosopher. We believe that today, right now, today, it's Friday where I am speaking and Thursday where you're speaking. So whether in the past or in the present, whether in your present or in the future, which is my present, we believe that Jesus Christ is alive right now. The Christian faith cannot exist without that belief. You take that out of Christianity, we have nothing. We have nothing. We have nothing. Nothing. It all rests on the idea that we believe Jesus is alive. And so if Jesus is alive, we're talking about a person is alive. We ain't talking about an idea is alive. We ain't talking about a doctrine is alive. Jesus ain't a doctrine. Jesus is a person. And we are being incorporated into the life of a person. Now, you know and I know that you can't be connected to a person and not be changed by that person. I think about my relationship with Pastor Orlando. And I think about the way in which my life has been shifted by my relationship with Pastor Orlando. I think about the ways in which he has opened his heart to me, and he's made it comfortable for me to actually share parts of myself with him and my journey with him, I would never share with anybody else. Why? Because when a person comes into the life of a person, they always make room for each other. They make room for each other's fears, and they make room for each other's strengths, and they make room for each other's weaknesses, and they trust. Jesus is not a doctrine. We have to stop thinking about Jesus as a doctrine. Jesus is a living person, and we are being incorporated into the life of a person, of a being. That's what we are being incorporated into the life of. And that life is moving into us. It's moving into us. And it's visible, tangible, recognizable, measurable transformation. Measurable transformation. You can measure your growth. If you can measure your decline, you can definitely measure your growth. Both of them are measurable. So I ask the question for you now. What can that type of inclusion look like in your life right now? What can that kind of inclusion look like in your life right now? What does it feel like in your life right now? What would it change in your life right now? What would you let go of right now? What would you cling on to right now? What would you change right now? What I'm going to do is I am going to let you go back into your groups, and I'm going to let you discuss that, because I think it's a very important question. If I can get out of this, I'm going to let you go back into your groups, and I'm going to let you discuss that for a few moments, because I think it's a very important question. This inclusion into God, which is transforming, this inclusion into God, which is measurable, which is knowable, which is understandable. This inclusion into God, what does that look like in your life right now? We're going to go back into our groups, and you're going to talk, and you're going to share that together. Yeah. So let me open up the rooms now. We're going to go back into our groups, and we're going to talk about that right now. The rooms will be opening. And if you are joining us on YouTube, if you are still with us on YouTube, 7 unassigned. All right. Okay. Some of you, all right then, some of you are in this room with me, and it says that it's unassigned. So, all right, we're together. We're together in this room. Can everybody hear me? Oh no, you're going into rooms. All right, you can hear me. You can hear me. All right, then I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you rooms to head to. So that you can join into a conversation. All right, then. Here we go. So if you are left with me and you're on YouTube and you're watching, on YouTube, why don't we share together? Why don't we share together? You can write your answers in. You can write your answers in the chat. There are people still in this room here with me now. Barbara, are you with me? Junie? Wayne? Galaxy 10E?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, who just spoke then?
Wayne.
All right then, Wayne. All right, you're with me here. So what can that look like for you?
I'm driving, so I was distracted.
All right then. Well, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put you into a room where you can have some conversation together, yeah?
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Oh, you're still with me? All right. It's like you don't want to leave. So stay with me then.
Can you ask the question again? What was the question?
So the question was, if God is going out of his way to include us into his life and to include us into his grace and include us into that growth that truly is like transformational, what can that look like in your life right now? What does that feel like? What things begin to change in your experience right now?
Well, I think you mentioned it. My attitude, your attitude, as you know, determines your altitude. So your attitude got to change. Your character has to change to be like Christ, because when his character is fully replicated in us, one writer said, that's when he will come to receive us as his own, when his character is fully replicated in us, he will come to save us. So our character must be Christ-like. Our attitude, our deportment must be Christ-like. So I think that's what I got.
Yeah. If there's anybody else in the room that is listening and that can hear us, you want to come off of silent and join into the conversation? What does it look like for you? And thank you, Wayne, for sharing. Hi, Sister Marge.
Yep, you're welcome.
Life is completely different. You're not agitated by what you see or hear or the people around you. You are calm and compassionate. You listen. You're ready to forgive, like how Jesus would forgive.
Yeah, I like that, Sister Marge. I like that. That is measurable. That is measurable. That is knowable. Yeah, I like that. I like that, Sister Marge. Anyone else? We got about 60 seconds left. Anybody else like to share?
Can I ask a quick question?
Please, sir. Please do. Please do.
It has no relation to what we're discussing. What time is it in Australia? I just want to know.
It's 10:22 Friday morning.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I love about technology, Brother Wayne. That was my brother's name, my brother Wayne, and he was fair-skinned just like you too. Fair-skinned just like. I love technology. Like, I'm speaking into your past, you're speaking into my future, but we're hearing each other in real time. You know, beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I love technology.
And technology declares God in some way, because, you know, technology seems impossible. Like I can speak with you now. It seems like something only God can do, can create. So I think God has had his hand in technology.
I think so too. Everyone's coming back into the room. Thank you, Brother Wayne. Thank you for your feedback. I see Keisha, I see Brittany, I see everyone is coming back in. So great. Well, Keisha was the first person that I saw. So Keisha, feedback. What came out of your group? I know that's a great conversation took place. I know a lot happened there. I can feel it.
It was so good. So good. So what that kind of inclusion looks like right now to our group is initially getting closer to God, seeking God, walking in faith more, being intentional about that. Having a daily consecration of daily refreshing that we belong to God and we represent God wherever we go. Life has to look, our lives have to look the same as our speech, so they can't be a disconnect between what we say and what we do. Huge. Impacting people's lives for the better. So Anthony Griffin reminded us a couple of years ago, everyone was wearing a bracelet that said WW, not everyone, but many people wore bracelets that said WWJD, what would Jesus do? And that we were wrapping up to say 2 last points. Leave people better. Once they leave your space, they should be better. Whatever better is for them, they should be better. And change is a must.
All right then. Beautiful. Brittany, I see you hiding in the corner of my screen, sitting comfortably. What came out of your group?
So 2 main points came from our group. The first one ties in with what Sister Keisha is saying, is about relationship, getting deeper into God's word and opening up our minds to receiving what's written there. And the second is that it allows us to have more freedom in a relationship with others. So we're looking beyond.
That's nice. I like that. That.
We're looking beyond the physical. We're looking beyond the things that make us different to realizing that at the root of it all, we're all human beings, we're all people. And so if we have God within us and we have the love that God has within us, then that means that those barriers that we as human beings put up, we're able to move past that and to have relationship with others freely, understanding that our relationships are not predetermined by the things that we as human beings have kind of put in place to cause divide and separation. But if we understand that God's love transcends all of that, then we as human beings have that ability to then love each other in such a way as well.
Beautiful. All right, well, I see Elder Lionel sitting just beneath you in the box, like literally, like Brady Bunch. If you look down and Elder Lionel looks up, it's going to literally be an episode of the Brady Bunch. You know what I mean? So, Elder Lionel, what came out of your group? You're just on mute, sir. You're on mute.
I'm saying we had some good points. So the first point was surrender. What do I mean by that? Our group was saying that it is so easy to give up those things that we used to do. Not the same anymore. It's a new attitude. What did I say? A new attitude. Things we used to get upset about, it's not, we don't pay those things any attention anymore. The second point is it makes us stronger. We feel we have this confidence, this knowing, this assurance that everything will be all right. The third one is he's our first option. Before, when we weren't, we try everything else, and if it don't work, we come back, But now, whenever a decision needs to make, Davin mentioned this, whenever a decision needs to be made, he automatically, we know that we need to consult God. He's our first option.
Beautiful. I love that. Let's go to Shay. I see you hiding in the polar opposite corner of Keisha, like the two of you in polar opposites, but I know you love each other, and I know there ain't no bad blood between anyone.
All day, every day. Heart. Okay, so we went about it a different way. One of the things that were mentioned in our room is like the inclusion with Christ is like a bungee cord.
Yeah.
You are letting go completely and you're falling because you know at the end that he's your safety net. He's that bungee cord that's going to pull you back up. So and also one of the things that were brought up was that practicality. When you look at that inclusion, you have to realize that We no longer, as you mentioned before, with somebody with an issue and you say, I'm gonna pray for you. You have to be practical. Jesus acted. He didn't just say, okay, I'm gonna pray and I'm gonna see you tomorrow. But he acted on it. He fed people. They're hungry. He fed 5,000. He fed some more. Like, it just continued. You have to be practical. You have to understand that all of this includes, you have to make connections. You have to understand that he's the extension. All you're doing is pouring your stuff out and he'll do the rest. So you also have to be deeply connected. Somebody else said that that inclusion means that you have to let go of you. You have to let go. There's no question about it. If you continue to hold on to you, it will never reach. You can't be included. If you're holding on and you want to stand by yourself, you can't be included in the rest of the crowd. You have to let go one to get the other part. So it's about of letting go and just accepting that he will do the rest as long as you as long as you let it go. And the last thing we do is, somebody said that they can't do anything without Christ. You have to understand that you can't do anything, you can't be anything, you can't see, you can't eat, you can't live, you can't breathe, you can't step without him. You can't do it. So once you learn that, then everything will fall into place.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Samuel, what came out of your group? Our conscripted facilitator.
Praise God. So in my group,
you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute, Sammy. You put yourself. Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Yeah. So we came up in our group. Somebody said everybody is worth fighting for, regardless of their social and financial status. That's what inclusion with Jesus looks like, right? You know, you look at somebody walking down the road. It doesn't matter what they used to be, what they used to do, because Jesus fights for everybody, regardless of, you know, their past life or the life that they're leading now. So it's just inclusion with Jesus looks like we got to be ready to fight for everyone. We can't judge others, you know, and meet them where they're at. So we have to meet them where they're at in order to have that sort of inclusion. And the second thing that we came up with is that no matter how people treat you, you have to have patience, because sometimes in trying to have that inclusion, people may try to argue with you. They may try to put you down, break you down. And so we discussed that this inclusion includes being patient, you know, realizing that, you know, this person may, you know, they may not have that patience like you do. So just being patient with them, talking them through it. So we decided that, you know, as a group that inclusion looks like being patient with others, regardless of how they treat you, I think that's a big one, is regardless of how they treat you, just continuing to work with them, if that makes sense.
That is hard.
Yeah.
That's why Jesus said you will have love, because you can only do that when you love people and not when you like them. You know, you can only do that when you love. I love Sister Keisha said a whole word. You know, whole word. Pastor Dexter, land is playing for us. Where what came in from your group?
So my group had a whole bunch of all-stars on it as usual, you know. Pastor Poulet, we had Jessica, we had Daddy Groves, we had Emmanuel. It was a great group. But in my group, one thing that somebody said, and it was said at the very beginning, is that everyone must have freedom to take part. A space where everyone has freedom to take part. I thought that was deep. Another thing, I think, without repeating some of the things that were said before, because I think we don't want to repeat that because of time, but living intentionally to the point where you're living worship that it attracts others to want to worship. So intentional and so practical in a way that others want to worship God, not you, right? And they want to be inclusive on where you're at, because that they can sense the Spirit working there, whether it's your husband or your spouse, but living in such a way that becomes so attractive to people, to others, and to family as well. Another thing Pastor Poulet brought out was that, you know, God gave us the blueprint, he said. you know, and for us, we have to realize that we have to accept the blueprint, that God calls us to fellowship and relationship, authentic fellowship and relationship. And Pastor Boulay said this, and I thought it was deep. He said, we must break down walls and we must make ourselves uncomfortable so that others can be comfortable.
Come on now.
I thought that was deep. And he said, you know, look at the plight of the indigenous folk, and we have to learn to accept, you know, the ones who are opposite us, and learn to identify with their story, identify with their plight.
Yeah,
that's it.
I heard somebody say this evening, and just in connection with the point that Pastor Pule made and that you just made here, they said, don't call yourself an ally until you could show me where you've sacrificed. I was like, oh my gosh. Until then, you're just a supporter. So I'm like, if you ask Jesus a question, what's Jesus gonna do? He's just gonna say, Jesus, you're just like, you want to see one or you want to see two? You know what I mean? What? Don't call yourself an ally. Yeah, make ourselves uncomfortable so that people, you know, the funny thing is, I would never normally do this as a group discussion, but the Spirit just said to me, no, allow them to discuss that. So I know it's going to push us back on time because we're going straight back into another discussion again. But I've cut down your discussion time. Sorry, not sorry. So let's talk about church. Let's talk about church. If church now, church as we understand it, that we're rushing to get back to, yeah, if church now is about Jesus and surrender, if church is now about relationships and interdependence, if church is about service and being other-centered, what does church now look like? If this is what church is, what does church now look like? We're going to go into our groups now. I've cut you down to 5 minutes, so make your points. And when you come back, you're having two each. So choose your best two. All right, let's go into our rooms now.
I think that church has the characteristics of Christ.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sister Marge. Everybody should be coming into their, yeah. I know it's taking time for everybody to get into their groups, but everybody should be getting into their groups. Yes, Sister Marge, you were saying?
Church has the
characteristics of church, yeah.
Of Christ. Loving, compassionate, you know, sacrifice yourself for one another, giving yourself to one another, loving other better than yourself, serving, I should say, service to others.
Yeah, yes. Samuel, are you still in my group?
Yes, I am. I didn't get over to one.
What happened there? Huh. I'm not sure. Oh, you know what? You let me assign you back to your group. You can go to Samuel's group. You can go to Samuel's group. You can go to Samuel's group, and you can go to Samuel's group too. Yeah. Yeah. Samuel joined on another. He joined on another Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Sister Marge.
Did I say service or served? He said, I came not to be served, but to serve.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
serve others.
Yeah. I do love that. I do love that. Who else is still with us? Wayne, are you still with us? Barbara? How do I say that name? Oham? Forgive me if I'm butchering your name. Sildika? Junie? All right. It looks like they've left us. Looks like they've left us. How long have you been at Hope Church, Sister Marge?
How long I've been here?
Yeah.
So I can't call the number. I don't remember. 20 years, 30 years.
Is that how long Hope has been together as a church?
Yes, about that. 25 years.
Oh, wow. So are you one of the founder members?
Yes.
All right. All right. Which church was you at before?
I was at the Faith Seventh-day Adventist Church, and when Pastor Michelle came, he put Faith and Maranatha together to make Hope Church.
All right then. All right then. So we came out of a mother church then, yeah?
The mother church was the Perth Church.
Which one?
Perth.
Oh, Perth. Okay. Nice. All right. Well, you've seen a lot of changes and a lot of shifts. How do you see church now as to when it first started?
Oh no, far from it. Church was church then.
What's it going to take for it to be church now?
Pardon?
What's it going to take for it to be church now?
Whatever you're teaching here.
Mm-hmm.
God, faith, and culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, last night I couldn't sleep. That thing was on my mind. It tells me about Jesus. Every time I think about all three, it came up Jesus.
Yeah.
Christ. It's a powerful subject you're doing here.
Thank you, Mom. You remind me of my mother. She always says the same thing. You're talking about everything, but does it point back to Jesus? Mm-hmm. Always. Thank you, Miss Ma. I'm gonna start with Keisha, simply because Keisha came in dancing. You know, Keisha came in dancing. But I'm taking two. Yeah, I'm taking two. Everyone's coming back in. All right, everyone's coming back into the room now. But yeah, Keisha just came in straight dancing. So Keisha, please.
Wow. I'm just going to boil down our two to authentically inclusive of people and doing the work. Just allowing God to do the work, allowing the Holy Spirit to do the work, and us as human beings and church people to be authentically inclusive.
Mercy. I love that. Brittany, you're sat right next to Keisha on the screen. So you come in.
Alrighty. So it was a good conversation, but as you said, just two. So just 2 points. One is actually a question that was raised that I'm going to just put out there as well. The first was that kind of reconstructing the question as to, the church really is the people.
Yeah.
So when we look at it, how are those 3 main points that we talked about reflected in each of our lives, so that when we come together, we can amplify it on a larger scale, because the church is just really a building, right? Like when we think of it, we think of the building, but instead it's actually
the church isn't the building, it's
the people. How are we as individuals living lives that portray those 3 things? And then how is it that when we come together, we're able to amplify that as a body? And then the second was, how does interdependence and service connect? How can we connect with our community in such a way that they are dependent upon us for something, so that when that service, when that service or goods or whatever is removed, there should be something missing that creates I said crisis. I don't want it to be a crisis, but it should be that when we step away, that there's people calling saying, hey,
there's a consciousness that you're not there. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Beautifully said.
Yeah. And in their lives, that creates a crisis because they understand how essential you are to their life. They understand how important you are to their life. I love that. Before my point gets lost, Sister Marge, Miss Marge, she said that the church will look like Christ. The church will be loving. The church will be compassionate. The church will be serving others. The church won't be waiting to be served. It will be a church that is a church that is looking like Jesus. I love that. Let me see who else I can see here. Shay, what came out of your group? Two. I know you got a ton. One
of the things that was actually put is like the church will be more intentional. Everything that we do, so it will not be about the showcase and the splash and the glamour, but it will be intentional. Every service, every action, every department will be intentional about doing God's work and being intentional about our community and things around us. And another thing somebody brought up about the interdependence is like we got to learn each other on our own levels so that we can form those bonds, so that we can become the church that we need to be. Because you can, as somebody brought up an example of having children, you can't treat all the children the same, even though it's one household. You have to learn them each individually, and then you could form that tightness. Because you know, when you have siblings, it's ride or die. We take it on everybody before you take out us. So it's like, even though the parents treat them differently, they have one unit at the end of the day, but they learn to one another and they learn to form that bond so that they're all connected, so therefore they can take that next step in Christ.
I love that. We had a board meeting once and we was talking about how we help different people. And somebody said, well, how can you help one person in one way and help somebody more? I said, everyone's going to be equally helped, but not everyone can be helped equally. Yeah, that person only needs 2. That person needs 10. So give the person the 2 that they need, but give that person the 10 that they need, because they need the 10. But we're helping, everyone is being equally, and it's the same in the church. Everyone is going to be equally loved, but some people are going to need more love. Some people are going to need more patience. Some people are going to need more time. Some people are going to need more time. Love that. Samuel, you jumped into my group, but then I pushed you back into your group. So you landed back in your space.
Yes. No, we came up with some really good points.
Yeah.
On the level of two. All right. So on the level of surrender, we talked about putting God first. In our churches, just as we continue to move forward with the service and the small groups and the different things that we're doing in the church, just ensuring that we put God first instead of coming up with the ideas and then praying to God to ask him to bless those ideas. But make sure that we consult God first before we come up with the different things that we want to do or facilitate. Beautiful. And then in the terms of interdependence and service, we talked about to reevaluate as a church. So looking at where we are now, reevaluating and where we want to go. And what that looks like is how are we going to incorporate the community into the church, right? The idea that I wanted to express was that we're not an exclusive club. You don't have to be a Seventh-day Adventist to feel that our church is open to you. You know what I mean? Our services are open to you. And one idea that I want to bring forth was advertising Pathfinders and Adventures in the local newspaper. So that kids who are not necessarily of the Seventh-day Adventist faith, or maybe who are not even Christian, their parents can say, oh, this is a nice group where they get to learn about this, that, these badges, these honors. And that way they equally get to learn about Christ. But the other thing too, maybe, have like a resume writing group where people of the community, we use our church space to, and like somebody else said already, where when the people of the community realizes that service is no longer available, that they're in a panic because they're like, yo, I need that. So those are the ideas that we came up with.
Love that. Love that. Love that. I love that. Elder Lionel, what came out of yours?
Was that me?
Yeah.
See, when Siri just asked me a question and like everything went blank. Okay. All right. So our group, we came up with
two from yours.
Yeah, we came up with the idea that it's a unified force. What do I mean by that? It's functional, operational. We're committed, still going strong. We don't just kind of want it. Number two point is that since we no longer have that physical building, church is about us having a conversation. It's more external. It's not just on a specific day anymore. It's about us interacting. It's about us, building friendships, building connections.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Pastor Dexter in the All-Star Room, land is playing for us. Two great takeaways from yours.
Hey. So from the All-Star Room, we said that the church is no longer just a hospital, but there's actual recovery happening. So when you come, there's going to be recovery. It's just going to happen. And then the next thing we talked about is this move from safe space to now brave space. Because the church for a long time has tried to we've been going in the last year on trying to do safe space, but now it's brave space because silence is not an option. Silence is complicity, right? So we have to move out of just being silent on things. And I want to just say this last one, I'll throw it in there. I know I'm not allowed, is this, that we are a church that no longer, of course, we're not in the building anymore, but we're no longer caught in our feelings, but we're captured by the needs of others. Because oftentimes we get caught in our feelings, but we're not captured by the needs of others. That's not the priority anymore. It's our feelings.
Mercy. I saw from Slim the comedian, I follow him, he's an English comedian. He said, how old were you when you found out that hospital stands for House of Sick People in Trauma and Labor? I wrote back like today years old, but that's what hospital stands for. House of Sick People in Trauma and Labor. That sounds like a church, doesn't it? Or am I just putting too much in it? We are so far behind time. I don't even know if we're going to get through all of this today, and I don't want it to carry over into tomorrow. So we might have to forego our last discussion group on culture, and that's my sweet spot. But if church is about Jesus, relationships, and service, and I love everything that has been said, a place of inclusion that is working, that is intentional, that is reevaluating, and that puts God first, that is a unified force, that isn't caught in its feelings, that looks like Jesus, to quote Miss Marge. A church is a place where we create kingdom spaces for kingdom living. And kingdom living is everything that you've just described. That place of inclusivity, that place where everyone is working intentionally. Everything that you've spoke about in your group and you broke down, that's what a kingdom space and kingdom living looks like. The church is the place in which we learn, then we live, then we share. What we want to do in our church is share things that we haven't learned and we ain't figured out how we live yet. That's what we do. But the church is a place where we learn to love, then we live the love, then we share the love. If you're with me, raise your hands. Yeah. That's our amen right here. That's our amen right here. That's our amen right there. The church is a place where we struggle with grace. And struggling with grace is understanding how we love each other beyond our mistakes, how we extend the understanding of God's goodness to each other. It is a place where we struggle with grace. It's a place where we struggle with being forgiven. It's a place where we struggle with understanding that when Jesus comes back, when Jesus comes back, and I've gone off the camera, important, you know, when Jesus comes back, Jesus isn't going to ask you where the church manual is. Jesus is going to ask you where the people is. I didn't die for a policy book. I died for people. And we can only understand how to do that when we struggle with grace, when we love people beyond themselves, when we love people beyond ourselves, when we sit comfortably in that place of uncomfortability. The church is a place where we remember forward. Everything that we do, think about it. Baptism, we think back we remember back in order to live forward. Communion, we think back in order to live forward. Extending forgiveness, we think back to what they did in order to pull them away from that in order for them to move forward. That's what the church is. And the church is a community of memory. The church is a community of memory. You think about what all the things that we read in the Bible are the stories of things that happened and how God moved. And it's important that we share those memories. That's why it's important that you testify. A testimony does three things. Number one, a testimony helps an unbeliever to believe. If an unbeliever sits in a testimony service and hears one person testify, they'll think, oh, wow, that's amazing. If they hear two people testify, they'll think, wow, that's coincidental. But once they hear the seventh person testify, it's no longer coincidental. You have now established truth in their mind because they've heard it from the mouths of 10, 15 people. So testimonies encourage unbelievers to believe. Number two, testimonies encourage the believers to keep on believing. If Elder Lionel stands up and talks about what God has done for him, and then I'm sitting in the privacy of the congregation and I'm like, I'm going through the same thing. Oh my gosh. And then Elder Lionel talks about how God answered his prayer. And I know that God doesn't love Elder Lionel more than he loves me. I'm going to like, well, if God did it for Elder Lionel, God's going to do it for me. Let me keep on believing. Let me keep on trusting. If God did it for Samuel, God is going to do it for me. If God did it for Sister Marge, God is going to do it for me. And testimonies enable believers to keep on believing. You know what I mean? And then thirdly, testimonies affirm us personally in our belief. You know why people break down into tears? And I'm almost feeling myself getting emotional. You know why people break down into tears when they testify? Because God comes over them just like, you ever been at the beach and the water just roll over you? Or you're in your bath and you're in a hot bath and you sit in that hot bath and then you just slum down under and you allow the water. God comes over them in that moment and they're conscious of how good God has been and they break down. They break down. They break down. Testimonies encourage unbelievers to believe. They help the believers to keep on believing and they affirm us in our belief. And that's why we must share memory. Church is a community of memory. Church is a community of memory. So culture. If culture for us now and the way we navigate it is about Jesus' relationships and service, what does culture look like? And in the interest of time, I do want to end on time. So please, actually, I might go over by 5 minutes. And please don't be mad at Pastor Dexter. It's not his fault. Yeah, it's mine. I'm making you the particle land tonight first. Timothy Keller says, culture isn't so bad that it can't be redeemed, nor so good that it cannot be critiqued. One of my favorite quotes from Timothy Keller. Yeah. Culture is never so bad that it cannot be redeemed. Why? Because culture is the established beliefs, practice, and norms of people. You know God's favorite culture in the world? All of them. God don't have no favorite culture. Favorite culture is just human beings. Are all cultures the same?
Nope.
They are. We think they aren't. All right, then I'm not going to do my exercise. Remind me to do my culture exercise tomorrow. Yeah, remind me. Say, Pastor, do your culture exercise tomorrow and we'll see the universality. But culture is the place, you know, if our approach to culture is Jesus and relationships and service, then culture is a place where we challenge and inspire the culture. And then be challenged and inspired by culture. I don't understand why the church doesn't think that it cannot be inspired by the culture. We are the culture. We are the culture. We dress the culture. We listen to the culture. We are the culture. We are the culture. We are. And church and faith and Adventism. I've traveled around our world church maybe about 3 times now, preaching around the world over the past 20 years. And Christianity, Adventism, is culturally defined and then spiritually worked out. Believe me, you travel around the world, people do different things in the name of Adventism culturally. And then they spiritually work out the rest of it. But in terms of the culture of Toronto, where you live, our job as a church is to inspire and challenge the culture, and then be inspired and challenged by the culture, by their desire to stand up on issues that we're not willing to stand up on, to be in spaces that we're not willing to be. We need to be challenged and inspired by that. And the church, culture should be the place where we are interpreters of God in real time and prophetic time. Not just opening up our Bibles and showing people where God is coming in the future, but opening up our lives and showing people where God is working right now. How do we become interpreters of God in real time as well as prophetic time? I said it yesterday that God is reintroducing himself ahead of us in every paradigm shift and cultural swing, and that the world is being made smaller by God in order to make himself both bigger and accessible in us. In us. Jesus is only asking us to do the 3 things that we already know. He's asking us to follow him. He's asking us to intentionally live in love with each other. And he's asking us to selflessly serve lost and hurting humanity. He's asking us to do those 3 things. He's made it that simple because it is actually that hard. It is that hard. Because it means we have to come out of ourselves and come out of ourselves more and more and more in order to make room for him. That is the kingdom. He's made it that hard because it's the epicenter of life and faith. That's where we are going to be living our most empowered and our most Christ-centered life. In that space of surrender, that space of interdependence, in that space of other-centeredness. That's where we're living. That's the epicenter of life and faith. And he's made it the epicenter of life and faith because he wants us to find him and ourselves in all of those places. If you're looking for God, if you're looking for Jesus, he ain't in the building. He left the building. Jesus is in the place where people are living surrender, not just in the church, but outside of the church, especially. He's at the wells where women are coming, and the women and men are coming, as like the woman at the well, because they're isolated. He's at the places of self-imposed isolation, like Levi, just linked now and chained to the table of collecting taxes and just being a part of something that is actually killing him and isolating him. You know, he's in that space where Nicodemuses are coming to him by night. How many of you have people that really come to you by night? And when I say by night, they just come to you when no one is looking. They come to you in private moments. They text you in private moments, and they need your help. They seriously need your help, and they ask for your help. Jesus is found in those places where people are struggling to surrender, where people want to actually find strong community, where people want to live less self-centered and more other-centered lives. He's made it that hard He's asking us to either to be in that space of courage. And it's the space that we can be fearful, because the more you dig deeper into Jesus is the less you begin to recognize yourself. And as human beings, we're self-preservationists. We want to control, we want to hold on to as much control as possible. So here is the commitment and accountability. And forgive me, Pastor, but I want everybody to go back into their groups one more time. This is the last one. We've gone over by 3 minutes. Forgive me, everyone. I'm going to send you back into your groups for 3 minutes. And what I want you to do is list some ways that you can be proactively intentional, that you personally want to be proactively intentional about engaging God, engaging church, engaging culture, being more surrendered, being more interdependent and growing in that space of love, being much more other-centered and service-oriented in terms of humanity. I want to take you back into your groups, and I want you to share. I want you to share in those spaces. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. I'm going to cut down the breakout groups to 3 minutes for this one. I'm going to cut it down to 3 minutes, and I want you to just share in your groups, and then come back and we'll share that, and then that'll be our time for this evening. So let me send you into your breakout groups right now. I'm sending you all into your breakout groups right now, and share together. Be quick, and let's come back. Let's come back together. I think it's just us left.
I think we have to surrender ourselves daily to God. And then when
Yes.
in church, you just rejoice of what he had done. Sing praises and give him the glory for what he has done. It's a daily thing, and we end up on Sabbath giving him the praise for the great things he had done during the week.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Miss Marge. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure sharing this space with you. It's been a pleasure sharing this space with you. I have gone 7 minutes over time, Miss Marge. I am messing with the time clock.
It's for good.
Thank you, Auntie. All right, we're back into the group. We're back into the group. Keisha is always the first person in, and Keisha just smiling like 5 sunrises every time she's coming back in. She just I just know that it's been just deep in her group. So we are gonna start. We're gonna start with you, Keisha, and everyone. Please do forgive me for going over. We've gone like 8 minutes over. Please do forgive me for going over. I know that so many of you need to get and watch Love Island and whatnot. So, sorry for messing with your Love Island this evening. Yeah, sorry, not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. No, Keisha, come. What came out of yours? What came out of yours?
Intentionally, my group members say that we want to focus more on prayer, sharing testimonies, developing and improving our personal relationships, serving outside of the church building, more time in the Word and less time talking about things that don't make sense, and showing Christ in all that we do and say.
Okay, so this is the challenge for everybody in Keisha's group. Everything that you said, I want you to write down. That's because that's your commitment. Everything, everyone that shared in Keisha's group, I want you to write down. Then what I want you to do is I want you to write down the name of the person that you are going to ask to hold you accountable for the commitment that you've made. Yeah. So everyone who said in Keisha's group, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, I want you to write down the name of the person that you're gonna ask to hold you accountable for doing those things. Read those things out again for me, please, Keisha.
Sure thing. So the things that we are talking about is more prayer, sharing testimonies, developing and improving our personal relationships, serving outside of the church building, more time in the Word, and showing Christ that in all that we do and say.
All right, then. So for those of you who put those things in there and suggested those things, I want you to write down the name of the person you're going to ask to hold you accountable to live up to those things. Sister Brittany, Sister B, what you got for me?
All right, I'll make it quick. So, what the main focus was about finding a common ground between God, church, and culture. And a big thing that came to mind was music. In all those areas, we see music, right? Wouldn't it be great if we can create something, a program, an event that allows all those three things to be combined so that, again, we're tearing down those barriers and we're saying, hey, you can play the drums, you can play the keyboard, you can sing, we can all come together and celebrate that. So it's finding common ground, especially like looking at things like social media and Instagram and TikTok and just seeing how those elements can really be implemented in all those areas.
Beautiful. And once again, for everybody who was in your group who suggested those things that brought together what you have there, I want you to write down the names of the person that you want to hold you accountable for your suggestion. So they're going to check in and say, all right, how are you doing with that? People used to always come to me with dreams and ideas, and I saw they do it with Pastor Dexter. Pastor Dexter, I got this brilliant idea, etc., etc. And Pastor Dexter's like, brilliant, nice. And then like 3 months later, you go back to Pastor Dexter. You say, Pastor Dexter, what happened to the idea that I gave you? Pastor Dexter's like, I don't know. What did you do with it? No, God gave you the idea because he wants you to do it. If God wanted me to do that, he would have given me the idea. So how do you need me to support you in what God's given you to do, what God is birthing in you? Yeah, so let's do that. Elder Lionel, what went on in your space?
Okay, so Daveen is going to share quickly.
Yeah. So in our group, the 3 points listed was consistency. So to be consistent in our way of life with Christ. Also, bring Christ everywhere we go. More times we have Christ in our bedroom, in church. So bring it outside when you're like on the bench. You can read your Bible outside. You don't have to hide in a private place with Christ. And having discussions with your friends. More times when we're with our friends, it's different topics that have nothing to do. We don't really have those conversations about God with our friends unless it's a program going on. So just everyday discussions, we can just involve God and our Christ life.
I love that, David. Thank you for sharing that. And so for everybody in your group as well, write down the name of the person you want to hold you accountable for the decisions that you've just made and the ideas, so that they can follow in and check in on you. They can follow in and check in on you. Sister Shay, my ninja, my Nubian ninja, what came out of your group?
Okay, so we start off with saying loving the unlovable. A lot of times in church circles, it is hard. There are people so you will be waking up Sabbath morning happy, and so you get to church, it's like, for crying out loud. So loving the unlovable, leaving an impact in everybody that you meet when you walk, talk, everywhere you go, work, church, play, meet, leaving an impact. And then you attend to their social issues before you plug Jesus in. Other things that said was setting a standard. A lot of times when we bring culture, especially those of us from the Caribbean, we bring this culture of commerce and drama, setting a standard so that we know these are the points that we're following. And unfortunately, now that we're going back into our building, we have to understand this whole su business. Mary said, Tommy says, so we have to cut it out, because this is not what God wants from us. The church is a healing place, and we're not here to break down others by carrying around that story and damaging people unintentionally, because you're just talking versus you're hurting Sister Pearl and breaking her down every time you mention her name in some type of drama. So this is what we're saying, setting that standard that we no longer participate in these things. So that's one of the things that we talk about.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, God. Lord have mercy. It takes a lot of love to do this. It takes a lot of love to do this. You know, it takes a lot of love to do this. Thank you for that, Shay. The conscript, Brother Samuel, the willing conscript, man, the willing conscript. He didn't fight us at all. He didn't.
No, it's great. It's great. It's great. I'm loving the suggestions. It's really good. Our group came up with doing things that you may not want to do. Checking our surroundings. Don't be over eager. Make small steps, right? So just once with the checking surroundings, just look at the whole picture, right? Sometimes we have this one focused mind of what we want to do, but we have to evaluate from left to right, behind and front, and just and realizing that we don't have to go in big all the time. We can make small steps, whether it be making a phone call, talking, small steps is what's going to get us into that level. And then willing to get more involved, just willing to get more involved, using your talents, whatever talents God has given you, just willing to use that to show people love and to further God's kingdom is what we came up with.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And once again, for your group as well, Samuel, for all of you who made those suggestions, I want you to write down the name of the person you're going to ask to hold you accountable. Because I know all of what Samuel said was everybody throwing their ingredient into the pie. But for all of you who threw in your ingredient, I want you to write down the name of the person that you're going to ask to keep you accountable for your suggestion, so that they can follow up on you. Pastor, come on and land this plane for us. Come on and land this plane for us. What came out of your group?
So our group, we had a few things, but it was pretty much similar to some of the things that were said before. So I'll quickly say it. First thing is we said, we got to review our priorities. One thing is make a list of what are our priorities. And that's from the beginning of the day to the end of the day when it comes to who we are and what we do and why we do what we do. The next thing is we can we can be intentional on what we do by I think you mentioned this before, that when we go to church and we're in our church culture, that we don't depend on the church to do the things we know we should do. So we can intentionally take an active role in making that happen. Take the burden on ourselves to see it through. And then the final thing that we said is we need to also break our routines. There are some routines that we have that are destructive to community. They're also destructive to how we view each other, how we view God. And so we said, we got to go ahead and break some of our habits, our routines, on how we live, how we love, how we see God, how we serve.
Well, I share my screen for one last time. One last time. And it's going to be very brief. These are the things we do. These are the things we do. Everything we've discussed about this evening. We discussed yesterday about the things we know. Now you've discussed not only about the things you know, but the things that you do. What do we do with the things we know? What we've discussed tonight is what we do with the things that we know. And that's what God has called us to. And that's what God is calling us to. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for journeying with us over these 2 sessions. I hope that it has been something that will form the basis of great conversation, great journey, great direction, it will be a great catalyst for what you do next. I want to read 2 texts of blessing, but before I do that, I just want to say, Justin, you have good skin. Oh my gosh, that boy have good skinny. Lord have mercy. Sorry. Sorry to be so distracted. I need to be a bit more professional, but I'm looking down at this you and I'm like, man, he had good skin. It's like chiseled mahogany. You know what I mean? Sorry, Josh. Sorry, man. Sorry. Forgive me. You know, I am a highly professional man. I am a highly professional. And all right, let me go back into my space. I want to read two texts of blessing for you as a church, as we round up the things we know and the things we do. I want to read 2 blessings. The first blessing is found in Psalms 20. The first blessing is found in Psalms 20, and it's called the Prayer of Victory. And I want to read this for you. I read from the New Revised Standard Version. It says, hope, and everybody in this Zoom call, and everybody listening to us on YouTube, the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. The name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and give you support from Zion. May he remember all your offerings and regard with favor your burnt sacrifices. May he grant your heart's desires and fulfill all your plans. And may we shout for joy over your victory. And in the name of our God, set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions. That's my prayer for you. And so, once again, reading from Paul to the Ephesians, for this reason I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth takes its name. And I pray that God, according to his riches, to the riches of his glory, that he may grant that you may be strengthened in your inner being through his Spirit, and that Christ may dwell in your hearts richly as you are being rooted and grounded in love. I pray, hope that you may have the power to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and the length and the height and the depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses all knowledge, so that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. So now to him who by the power at work within us is able to accomplish abundantly far more than we can ask or imagine, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus to all generations forever and ever. Amen. That's my prayer for you. And I will hand it back to Pastor. Tomorrow evening, we are going to have a double session. We're going to have the first part of the session is going to be with the young people. It's going to be a questions and answer session with the young people. And then the second part, I'm going to be talking about learning to love again. We're going to go to Ephesians chapter 3, Revelation, actually, and chapter 3. And we're going to talk about learning to love again. Jesus' word to the Ephesian church. And we're going to share that. We're going to share that together. So look forward to being with you all. It will be Sabbath for both of us. so you won't be missing Love Island, so I can go on as long as I want, you know. It'll be Sabbath, and it'll be Sabbath morning for me. It'll be Saturday morning for me, Friday night for you. So both of us will be deep in good Sabbath experience together. So Pastor, I'll hand it back to you. And once again, please forgive me. We went 20 minutes over. Please forgive me for cutting into your time.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to just thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We thank Pastor Eddie for his wise words today that definitely came from God's throne room. We are honored that we can share this space with you. As a Hope family, we know that when we come together, that God's Spirit does amazing things. We want to encourage you. We have gifts to give out every night. We want to encourage you to go to Pastor Eddie's website. It's called EYRLTD.com. There you'll find his resources. He's author of 2 books. The one that we want to recommend to you is Living From Here. Living From Here. It's a powerful book. We're giving it away right here in this space, but we want you to also go there and purchase the book. There's an audio book to that. And also there is a PDF copy. So you have the choice of buying either or maybe you want to gift it to someone. So we ask that you will sow into his ministry as he brings life to others. But we ask you that you will continue to join us for this journey here where we love and hope without limits, where we're loving God, loving people, and making disciples this year. And so we're growing in this space. We ask you to join us tomorrow evening at the same time, the same place. Invite someone else with you. You can't come here and get rich alone. Make someone else wealthy in the saving grace of Jesus Christ. We love you. God bless you. Have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Amen.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Amen and amen.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Night, night.
Good night. Good night. Bye.
And Marcia, although that you abandoned us tonight, I still love you. I want you to know that. Just couching back on your couch like that. I still love you.
Love you too.
Right.
Question, do you know Crocodile Dundee?
Not personally.
Good night, Elder Griffin.
Okay.
Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. And how are you, Elder Griffin? I am not coming back home.
Pastor Eddie.
Yes.
Where in Australia are you?
I live in New South Wales. 2 hours outside of Sydney.
So my daughter studied at Griffith University.
Which one?
My daughter, she studied Griffith
at Griffith.
University in Australia.
Okay, what did she do?
Yeah. Journalism.
No, it's actually the best university in Australia. My daughter's best friend.
Oh, really?
She wants to study, for journalism, the best in Australia. My daughter's best friend.
Oh, that's nice.
Is looking to go to Griffiths to study journalism too. Yeah, she's applying to Griffiths. So she was at a good school.
Figure whether or not she would have known you.
No, I don't think she would have. How long ago
Maybe
was she
not,
there?
Yeah. 7 years. Yeah, about 7
maybe.
years. About 7
Maybe.
years.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I got here 8 years ago, so we might have caught each other through the exit door, through the revolving door.
All right.
Yeah.
She,
Thank you.
in her room, but she don't like to be shown up like that. I can't answer anything. She don't want me to show up like that.
All right then. Give her my regards though.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Auntie.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Pastor Lionel.
Is this just us now?
Did we
We're
stop
still
YouTube?
live on YouTube, I believe.
Yes. Can we stop that?